Hi, welcome along. In this video, I'm going to talk through the 5 pillars of a great staff induction to help your new team member get up to speed and working effectively as quickly as possible. If we haven't met yet, my name's Fiona and I put out videos every week on topics with hints, tips and tricks to help you to feel more confident at work. So let's get started. So a quick run through. The 5 pillars of a great induction, in my view, are: number 1, them. When are they their best self? Number 2, you. What's your team, department, workplace, employers' culture? The network that they need to develop, the strategy of the organisation, and lastly, number 5 is their professional development. Let's cover each one off in turn. So number 1, best self. So this one I think is really easy to neglect because you've probably fairly recently met them, you've read their CV, you've done their interview, and so you probably feel like you've actually had quite a lot of talk about them, and now you think, great, well, you're here to learn to work for us, so let's talk about us. But actually, really, I would say stop, wait, before you launch into anything about you, your team, your organisation, any of that stuff. Really get them to focus on themselves and pay close attention to this. So get them to think and describe to you a time when they have been working at their best. What were they working on? What was their role in delivering whatever it was? How were they working? Who were they working with? What was their part? What was the outcome? And what was the delivery? And this will help you to see what motivates them, how they like to work, what their values are, all of those things. And it will also get them to have in their own mind, as they start off with their new job, a vision of themselves at their best, which will set them off in a really positive mental headspace, which can be so helpful when you're starting a new job and you're a bit nervous and thinking, oh, I don't know everybody and can I do this job and all of those things. So get them to start off with this vision and description of them at their best. We'll set them in the right frame of mind to make a really great first impression and get up to speed really quickly. Okay, so the next thing, once you've got them to talk about their best self, is when you begin to talk about you and your team and the culture, and when as an organisation are you at your best. So think here about how are decisions made, what are the different power dynamics, what is the terminology or jargon that's used, and then be able to describe that in a really helpful way, and bear in mind where this person has come from. So you need to think about, are they a junior member of the team who doesn't have much work experience? So you might need to cover some of the basics about how to work in the office. Are they actually quite a senior colleague who's got loads of experience and would find that really patronising? What can you just cut out and go straight to, sort of the nitty-gritty stuff? You also need to think about where they've come from before. Is it somewhere that's really similar to you, or is it somewhere that's really different? Because that can really have an impact on how you describe the culture. And it gives you a counterpoint to talk about. And you can say, oh, where you worked before, was it like this or like that? We're more like this other thing. Yeah, so talk about the culture and what it is that they need to know to be able to get working really quickly and not kind of fall into any of those embarrassing pitfalls where they've made an assumption about how things are done that isn't quite right. If you can help them to overcome that stuff really quickly, that will be great and set them on the right path for success. And the next thing is working on their network. So it can be really easy when you've got a new member of staff to fall into a pattern of just answering all of their questions. I'm sure we've all done it, been like, oh, I don't know how to do this, I'll ask the boss. I don't know how to do this, I'll ask the boss. To sort of protect your own time and to set them up for progression, the best thing to do is to stop answering their individual questions and try to help introduce them to the people across the organisation or the team or outside of the organisation, if that's relevant, to get them talking to the right people to answer the questions for you, basically. So set them up with a really strong network of people who are working on similar things, who have work that interacts with yours, and get them talking to those people rather than keep bringing stuff back to you. Will help them to feel more confident because they know a broad network of people, and it will help you to get stuff done more quickly because they're not asking you all the time. And the next pillar is the strategy. So I think hold on to this one for a little while. Don't bombard them in their first week or two with strategy if you can avoid it. But once they've got their feet under the table, they understand the culture, they're getting on with work quite well, and they're developing a strong network, you can start to introduce them more to the broader strategy. This can be helpful to ground them in how decisions are made, like we talked about in culture, but more than that is to drive it into where are the priorities of the team coming from. Now, some organisations have a really sensible pyramid, nice background, have a really sensible pyramid of here's the cultural, here's the institution's strategic plan, here's the department's strategic plan that follows on from that, here's the team plan that follows on from that, and here are the work objectives for each person within the team. If you've got that, amazing. That makes it really easy for you to describe and to give them a vision of what your team is trying to achieve and how to fit it all together. But some institutions don't really have that, and it's a bit more freeform. So do the best that you can to explain to them what the sort of long, medium and short-term goals of the institution are and how the work that they're doing fits into that. And be really open to receiving feedback about that, because as a person coming in from the outside, they are likely to have all sorts of observations and views of things that you haven't even thought about if you've been there for a while. So ask for their feedback. That may turn up some really useful insights for you. And the last one, which I think is often really overlooked actually, is professional development. So I talked a bit about this in a previous video, but some types of people are really motivated by professional development. And even if your person isn't particularly saying that they're motivated by professional development, it really helps your team members, whether they're new or established, to feel like that you and the department and the organisation is investing in them as a person and as a professional. So as soon as you realistically can, start talking to your team member about their professional development, about what they want to achieve, about anything that you've observed that they could do with developing on, and start building plans into their work to address those things. Give them opportunities to go to events or conferences or, whatever is relevant for them, so that they can be developing their professional development. And that will really send a message to them that they're a valued member of the team, even though they might have only been with you for a few weeks by the time you talk about it. Okay, so those are my top tips for the best way to get stuck into doing an induction. And remember, it's not super quick. Actually, a great induction should take either a full business cycle or about a year, depending on, what sort of business or, team it is that you've got. So don't rush it. Do remember to keep checking back on these things. So I think it's helpful to have a sort of 30-day, 60-day, 100-day review, and then check in kind of quarterly after that with them. And that's on top of whatever your regular one-to-one and team meeting structure is. So you're having regular catch-ups. So you're focusing on the 5 pillars, making sure that you're developing a really well-rounded view, and catching any struggles or problems that they're having along the way, because that's the kind of stuff that, in having these conversations about the different aspects of culture and network and strategy and professional development, by having these conversations, you can really get to understand if there are any misconceptions or conflicts with the team, or anything that's causing them some trouble. So make sure and check in regularly, and you should be on your way to a great induction. All right, if you've liked what you've seen today, give me a thumbs up. Oh, cat passing through. If you've liked what you've seen today, give me a thumbs up. If you've got new people joining your team, give me a comment down below and tell me what is your normal way of giving an induction. Is there any support that you get from your team, from your HR department, anything like that? Love to hear about it in the comments below, and I will see you in the next